Much of the debate over homosexuality has turned on the issue of whether it's a mental disorder. I realized that I couldn't contribute to this debate unless I knew what a mental disorder actually is. In studying the definition of mental disorder, I was reminded that there's often a difference between the actual meaning of a word and its social meaning. By the latter, I'm referring to how people in positions of influence often misuse terms in such a way as to give the appearance of objectivity to their subjective beliefs. Accordingly, a particular mental condition is judged to be a mental disorder based not on whether it coheres with the actual definition of mental disorder, but on whether our opinion leaders have judged the condition to be bad. In this episode, I'm going to illustrate the difference between the actual and social meanings of the term mental disorder with respect to atheism, not initial appearance to the contrary, homosexuality. The question I'll be addressing is the following: is atheism a mental illness? According to the Mayo Clinic, mental health encompasses a wide range of mental health conditions, disorders that affect your mood, thinking, and behavior. But what is a disorder? Merriam-Webster defines it as an abnormal condition. But what is an abnormality? The same source defines it as a deviation from the normal or average. And this deviation is implicitly understood to be bad. There are obviously good deviations that we can speak of. For instance, in a community populated mostly by mean people, a nice person would be a deviation from the norm, and most of us would agree that this would be a welcome deviation, or if you prefer, a good abnormality. But that's obviously not the kind that we're dealing with here. Before I continue, I want to make clear that I am most definitely not a mental health professional. If you think I'm completely off, please explain why in the comments below. Let's get started. Is atheism a mental disorder? Well, in the sense of frequency, atheism is indeed a deviation from the normal. That is, it's still true that most people aren't atheists. As for whether atheism is a bad kind of deviation, i.e. an abnormality, let's consider whether atheism affects one's mood, thinking, and behavior. Scholarly research and common sense tell us that atheism does indeed have this effect. Let's look at just a tiny sample of published research on the subject. In a study that came out just this year in the Journal of Spirituality and Mental Health, it was found that religious and spiritual beliefs and practices, especially church attendance, enhance mental health and well-being. These findings cohere with past research using data from the General Social Survey. In addition, a meta-analysis published in 2015 found that in most settings, religion plays a protective role against suicide. And while this is not a scholarly study, it's worth noting that an atheist writer acknowledged in a 2017 Huffington Post article that depression and suicide are indeed problems in the atheist community. Also, a 2013 study published in Mental Health, Religion, and Culture found that participation in religious activities decreases the probability of substance abuse as well as risky sexual behavior among emerging adults attending college. This is consistent with a lot of published research on the subject. No, I'm not saying that each and every atheist is suicidal, abuses drugs, or engages in risky sexual behavior. And no, I'm not celebrating these findings as if I hated atheists. I don't. I'm merely showing that per the actual meaning of mental disorder, a strong case could be made that atheism is an example of this condition. However, the social meaning of mental disorder doesn't allow for this inclusion. That is, those who shape popular culture are generally not inclined to view atheism as a mental disorder. This is so not because they're being more objective, but simply because they happen to believe that atheism isn't all that bad, despite its poor mental health and behavioral outcomes. Research on religion, of which I merely skimmed the surface, should put the current trend of growing disbelief in proper perspective. The promotion of atheism enables the spread of mental illness, and this ought to concern us deeply.